Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 60 of New Men, Same Block, where we reinvent your mind and reinvent your grind. I'm your versatile, your proper, righteous, omnibus, prolific, exuberant, and reinvented host, the proper Chris. Today, we're covering a very important and special topic with a great and special guest. This brother, I really appreciate him. He's a Muslim first, and he's standing proud on his religion, on his deen, and he's my Muslim brother, and also my fraternity brother of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. He is from the great land of Palestine. So for those of y'all who can't put the connection together, this is a Muslim brother who is Palestinian, who been around the world. He knows his stuff. And welcome, brother, Ahmad Kasem. How you been, bro?
I appreciate you, Chris. I don't know, man. You gave me a great intro there, man. I hope I can live up to it. But no, all jokes aside, man, thank you so much for having me on here. It's been long overdue, like we've been talking. And what a better topic to kind of get us on here than to talk about what's going on right now with the world.
Yep. And just not to even sugarcoat it, what is the whole Free Palestine movement about?
So I mean, there's really a lot of ways you could look at it, right? If you want to look at it just from a human's perspective, right? Let's take everything else out of it. Let's take the religion out of it. Let's take everybody's political bias out of it. From a human rights standpoint, man, I mean, we're talking about a land where the people that are most privy and lived there their entire lives are oppressed by a small minority group that's been placed there politically, right? It goes back to after World War I, actually, in 1929, is when the idea of Zionism came to play. It's funny because I was watching a clip earlier today, and there was a Christian pastor that was talking about a Bible that they had from 1905 that referenced the Holy Land as Palestine. It had the map of it. It said Palestine on it. Everything was Palestine. And it wasn't until 1929 when the whole Zionist notion came to about. And for those that don't know, Zionism is sort of it's like racism is like every other ism that goes with it, right? Zionism is the belief that the Israeli Jew is more important, or their life is more sacred than a Palestinian Arab. Now, that Palestinian can be Muslim, Christian, or Jew, for that matter. Because if you look at history in 1929, when the Zionist movement began, it began with the American Christian Zionists that kind of put together this document. I forget what it's called, but it was chartered. And then from then on, the Bible began to change.
And if I'm not mistaken, in Israel, all Jews are not treated equally. If I'm not mistaken.
I'll go a step further and tell you that I will never, during this conversation or at any point, acknowledge Israel as a country or a place. So excuse me if I take a step back and be like, Palestine that they're trying to claim as Israel, those parts no, they do not. I mean, there's huge records of Somalian Jews that are from Somalia that go over there and get treated unfairly. So the idea of Zionism is the Israeli Jew being superior man or woman, for that matter, to any other race or religion in that matter. But yeah, so in 1929, they started infiltrating small groups into Palestine, where we were actually welcoming them in. At that time, there was Muslim, Christians, and Jews living together in Palestine in peace, and everybody was good. Fast forward in I want to say 46 or 47, right at the end of World War II, where we're coming up at the end of the Holocaust, where Adolf Hitler at the time was trying to do literally what they're doing to the Palestinians right now. He tried to create genocide by trying to wipe out massive number of Jews. And thanks to the good old colonialism system and the whole oppressing system, England was kind of tasked with the situation of figuring out what to do with these Jewish people, European Jews.
Uh-huh.
And you can look this up. It was first suggested in the United Nations that they be placed in Argentina.
Uh-huh.
And
Where a lot of the
Argentina,
Nazi refugees have went, right?
right, exactly. So Argentina at the time was like, hey, um, lack of better terms, we know what these people's origin is and we know what they want to do, basically take over our land. They're like, hey, if y'all bring them here, we're going to finish off what Hitler didn't finish off, literally. Right. So
Uh-huh.
Argentina became as a non-factor. The second suggested place was Somalia, because Somalia had a huge Jewish population at the time, and it was brought up as, hey, maybe this will be a place of refuge, which at that time it was under the British control, and the British said, nah, we don't want them there. Let's just go ahead and create the state of Israel, which is their promised land, and put them
Uh-huh.
in Palestine. So the first conflict there is, anything we learned in school was to never mix church and state, right?
Uh-huh.
When you're making political decisions. So the first thing they did there is they took one person's church, which is Judaism, and tried to place its logic into state. Now, a lot of Orthodox Jews will tell you that understand their Torah and their religion that Israel is never to have its own country. That's why we have a lot of Jews that stand with Palestine.
Yep.
They're anti-Zionism, and let's be clear: being anti-Zionist doesn't make you anti-Semitic, because
And you
that's the
gotta make that
favorite
clear nowadays.
and that's the favorite go-to phrase, right? As soon as you express any terms being anti-Israel or anti-Zionism, then you're labeled as anti-Semitic, right?
Oh yeah. Anytime you
Which
challenge an oppressive system, they try to throw little tricks of words and everything to label the person who's being oppressed as a aggressor.
Absolutely, absolutely, and Israel is good at playing victim, man. They've been doing it since, again, 1948. Is when they started doing huge settlements at that point by force, backed up by U.S. military. If you look in 1948, the against UN policy, against UN recommendation, um, Israel declared themselves as an independent sovereign state. And literally within hours, because technology wasn't even that great, but just to show you, if it was within hours back then, that means it was within seconds in our time. President Truman of the United States recognized them as their own separate country. And that is the beginning of the downfall. Once they did that, they went against all UN regulations of the sovereign states. They, at that point, started occupying Palestinian lands and homes. And what's going on right now, I'm glad that it's getting all the attention that it's getting, but it's been going on for a very long time. The only difference, the only advantage is now the mainstream media can't manipulate the story, because everybody has a phone, everybody has a
Yep.
voice, because of platforms like yours and many others out there that allow the common average person to speak. We got people out there going through it that are pulling up their camera phones. You can't deny footage, you can't deny numbers. And now the mainstream media looks just dumb, because you're sitting there trying to sugarcoat something that the rest of the world sees clear as day.
Yep.
So at this point, you either are not for human rights or you are. It's one of the two. And I
Yep.
think Trevor Noah said this very eloquently. He said, it's not about picking sides if you don't want to pick sides, right? It's not about that. It's about just the way he described it is, he was like, when he was a teenager, his mom would tell him, hey, don't beat up your little brother, right? Because he's
Uh-huh.
5 or 6. He's smaller than you, he's weaker than you, there's nothing he can do to hurt you. And as much as Trevor would have wanted to turn around, like, but he started it or he did this. At the end of the day, you had logic enough to know, like, hey, I'm 15, he's 5. I can
Uh-huh.
break him in half if I wanted to, right? So if you look at it from that aspect, not to say that Palestinians are little kids or vice versa, is the idea of power, right?
Yep.
When you got somebody literally throwing a rock and your response is airstrikes and drone raids and leveling down buildings with families, etc. Something about that is not fair, right? If when we were kids, right, we were taught to what, like, don't, I don't even know if they teach people these things anymore, but like, don't hit a man with glasses on, right?
Yeah.
Or you can't go fight the handicapped kid, right? Like there's a certain honor in fighting, right? There's a certain
Yep.
honor, and there is the same thing in war. So for you to go bomb not only a group of people during a religious month, but you bomb them in the midst of prayer in one of their
Yep.
holiest sites, right? That's the nerve that Israel plays with. That's the trigger that Israel plays with. And now that's just looking at it from a humanitarian standpoint.
Yeah.
You look at it now from a Muslim standpoint, right? Which is the second level to this for me, which in actuality is the first level. But to discuss it secondly here, you're talking about bombing the third holiest mosque that we have, right? I mean, we only have three holy mosques. For those that don't know, in Islam, we have Mecca, the Kaaba, where we go do our pilgrimage. And then we have Al Masjid al Nabawi, the Prophet's, peace be upon him's mosque in Medina, as the second holiest. And the third holiest masjid is Masjid al Aqsa in Jerusalem. And I'm sure, as all the Muslims know, and some of the non Muslims may know, I just like to reiterate that we used to pray towards Al Aqsa before we pray towards Mecca. That was our first qibla when Islam first came. I'm just saying all this to show the significance of Masjid al-Aqsa and why it's important, right? We used to pray in that direction until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet to turn towards Mecca. There is a masjid right now in Medina that's called Masjid al-Qiblatain, right? Meaning that was the only masjid in the world that faces both qiblas. You can go into this masjid, and I've seen it, alhamdulillah, and you see one side of it facing one way, and then the other qibla is facing where everybody else pray. And you're like, if you don't know the story, you don't know that this is facing Jerusalem and this is facing Mecca, because that was the mosque that the message came down on when they were praying one way and the Prophet turned in mid-prayer towards Mecca, and then the Qibla was built on that same masjid. So that masjid holds two Qiblas for that reason. Again, I say all this just to emphasize the importance of Masjid al-Aqsa to Muslims. Has nothing to do with Palestinians, has nothing to do with Arabs, has everything to do with the billions of Muslims out there. So when Israel does that, now you're not playing on Palestinian nerves, you're not playing on Arab nerves. Now you're playing with Muslims, right? And Islam, as some people like to think that all Arabs are Muslim and all Muslims are Arabs, it's so much different than that, right? Islam is so much bigger than any Arab population that I know of, right? Islam, matter of fact, is numbers are biggest in Pakistan and in India and these places, but automatically, right, people want to associate Arabs and Muslims, right, as if one and the same. They use it as one and the same.
Politicize it.
Absolutely. Now you're trying to politicize the religion into a group of people. And to me, it's almost disrespectful to all the non-Arabs, right? I mean, I'm an Arab, so when you say Arabs are Muslim, Muslims are Arabs, it's whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I take it in the chin type thing, because at the end of the day, I am Muslim and I am Arab. It's all good. But to me, if I'm non-Arab, man, and I got these people referring to all Muslims and all Arabs as Muslims and vice versa, like, I got to feel some kind of way. Like, that's not fair to all these other people that do the same iman.
I was gonna say, I'm Black and Muslim, you know, so it's
I'm
definitely
prime example.
We always have those discussions that don't associate our religion with just one group of people, because it's bigger than that. It's bigger than the people itself. You feel me?
Absolutely.
And when you do that attack that they did on the mosque, that's just disrespect to people in general. And it's really just showing the lack of empathy and respect for those people.
Not only that, but you have now no respect for that religion, right? Now, like, I don't know if you've seen recently, Israel's official Arabic Twitter account, right, tweeted out a picture of the, I think it was the airstrikes from yesterday over Gaza. Basically, a bunch of bombs getting dropped in a building, getting blown up, and they had the audacity and nerve to quote an ayah or two from Surah Al-Fil. So now they're quoting our Quran, right? And almost mocking it, because the ayahs in Surah Al-Fil, it talks about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks on the wrath that he brought to the people of the elephant, right? Not to get into religious stories, but that was during Prophet Abraham time, or even a little bit after that, where there was this group of people that were famous for their elephants, right? And they were marching on Mecca to destroy the Kaaba. And then the elephants froze, they didn't do anything, and Allah dropped, he had birds drop basically flaming coal type of like lava rocks, and killed this group of people. So they're trying to say them dropping the bombs, right, burning up the people and killing them, in reference to that surah, almost making fun of it, right? So at this point, like, there's no honor, there's no respect, there's no decency, and they're very blatant with it, right? And what makes it worse is, I have to admit that to a certain extent, I'm American, right? And knowing that our government here is just as complicit in it. You saw Biden just signed another 758 million to go towards like missiles, and they got the #1 defense system in the world, for the world's largest, like for people that don't know, the group, the territory that Israel claims as their own, right? Or if you look at Palestine as a whole, it's smaller than California, right? Yeah. It's smaller than California, right? And they have the #1 world's defense system, right? They can shoot down a rocket like from miles, and probably hundreds of, before you even think of launching it, they can probably have it down. Not to mention they got the US military now backing that up, is just in case something there fails, right? So a lot of times, you know, it's unfortunate, but they always try to play the victim, right? Like, oh, but Hamas fired rockets on us, right? That's been the go-to phrase. And I think it was quoted best when it was just like, so like, you killed our children, you imprisoned our men, you raped our women, and you destroyed our country, you stole our homes, and in return we launched the rocket, right? So is that even wrong, if after all you did? And I'm just being honest. Like, I know some people are very anti-violence approach. I get that. And and don't get me wrong, like, if everything can get resolved anti-violence, great. But I mean, in reality, given history, given the situation, that's not going to happen. It hasn't happened, and
they're not giving away that type of power by peace and choice.
No. So almost the only hope at this point is A, God, first and foremost, right? And B, the people that are on the ground, right? Because now we got the world's attention. We got, you know, protests and rallies, not only around America, but around the world. And you got different, you know, people's with platforms. That's what matters. Like, people, because look, man, nowadays isn't like back in the day when CNN puts the story out, that can get overshadowed in a heartbeat if 50 Cent tweets something out. You know, I'm just being real. You know what I mean? And it's people with those kind of audience and those kind of platforms, when they use that to bring attention, is when it's greatly beneficial. But now, on the flip side of that, we know also somebody's signing those checks, right? And at the end of the day, most of that industry is ran by a lot of people that are pro-Israel. I'm gonna use that term very carefully, right? The media, the TV, the movies, the music. It's at the end of the day, those CEOs and those record label execs and studio execs are mostly pro-Israel, right?
Yeah.
Which makes it, and then look at the banking system, right? The Rothschilds, the whole world banking system is pretty much pro-Israel. So that now handicaps, government agencies from stepping up, because at the end of the day, we know that the big companies and the big banks run the governments, right? So
Highly
if they're
connected
not
and power.
backing it up, yeah. So when people are like, "Oh, we got to tweet the senator," I'm like, forget the senator. Let's look at who's in his pocket and focus on that. That's why I'm more about boycotting Starbucks, McDonald's, these type of things, because that's the big companies that are putting the money in these people's pockets. Guarantee you affect their pockets somehow is going to change policies and law magically. You don't even got to go to the senator or whoever. You know
And
what
would
I mean?
a simple Google search help people figure out which companies support Israel?
I'm not sure, as now a lot of things are being censored. I have personally put out on my page and continually to put out in the groups that we're in a list of companies that should be boycotted or support Israel in one way or the other. And again, I want to be very clear, man. We have Jewish people that are in agreement with this. So this is not Muslims versus Jews things, right? We have, and it's unfortunate that a few maybe weeks ago, prior all this catching the wind it caught, there was a lot of Christians that got attacked in Palestine because it was their Orthodox Easter, and the Israeli soldiers attacked them just the same, but it didn't get any coverage, right? So, and that was on purpose. Because now, if you got a story in America about Christians being attacked by Jews, now that's a whole different ballgame. But it's easier to sell the Arab Muslims, they're just going through that same old fight.
When and that's playing on everybody racial ignorance too, because everybody think it's us, separate. Everything is separate, even though our oppression, everything we go through is all interconnected. But when you separate, like you said, making it seem specifically to Muslim Arabs, then less people less likely to care. And that's cold out of the world we live in, period.
Absolutely. And I want to be clear, man. Like I'm quick to highlight all the things that are wrong, but look, there's a lot of things that have been going, well too. Like the huge people support, man. The Black Lives Movement returns support back here in the US to me is something that I'm proud of, because I never expected, right? As a person that always supported human rights here in the US, right? Look, man, I've accepted for 36, 37 years of my life that nobody cares about Palestine. You know what I mean? I have a shirt that I used to wear. I was trying to wear it today, but I forgot. It says Palestine versus the world, right? And I stand behind that firmly, because I've always thought that, no matter what happens, nobody's going to stand with us. But I can say that now I see that the people stand with us. It's the government representatives that are too scared, right? When you see thousands of people marching in Europe, you see that, like UK was ridiculous amount of people out there. Spain, Algeria, all these places had like tens of thousands. Chicago had 25,000 show up. I mean, that tells you that, hey man, there's still decency in the world. There's still humans that believe like humans should be treated like humans, right? It's just that we're so overran by these, money-driven, goal-oriented society, in a sense, that kind of dictates sometimes what people feel like is. And look, there's I won't say names, because I oftentimes feel like when you mention someone's name, good or, like, how they say there's no bad publicity, right? Good or bad, right? So I won't mention this individual's name, just because I don't feel like giving them that much credit. But they're very well known, and I'm sure people can put two and two together. One of the biggest artists, you can say, in the music industry. I don't even know if you consider him an artist, but one of the biggest individuals right now in the music industry, who has a huge platform, who all he has to do is say, I'm here, and people will show up by the flocks. One of the people that made Snapchat even instrumental to celebrities. One of the people that has like a huge fan base from all around the world, doesn't matter who's leaders and who's not, is Palestinian, mother and father. And I know his first cousins, right? Like, I know this dude. Like, you know what I mean? I don't even want to get, because I know I could take it personal. You know what I mean? But I'm saying, like, I know you. I know the streets in Orlando you're in. I know the so-and-so DJ you used to be underground with at the radio station. Like, I know, and regardless of how you feel about Palestine, regardless if you feel like, oh, well the Arabs never supported me or no, your blood is Palestinian. And nobody's asking you to go sign up and go to war. Nobody's asking you to become like Chance the Rapper and condemn these things, or Bella Hadid, who is a famous supermodel, and her whole family are models, and they all spoke out against it because they're Palestinian. Nobody's asking you to do all that. All we're asking you is just condemn the violence to your people. That's like saying, what clowns out there were coming out saying all lives matter during George Floyd that were black? Oh, I'm sure there's plenty of them.
It's plenty.
Right. It's like one of those clowns, right? And to me, those are clowns, right? Because nobody at any point said white lives don't matter. Nobody at any point said that Jewish lives don't matter. We're just saying right now, Black lives matter. Like, can we just say matter? We're not asking for it, it just matters.
Well, you touched on it earlier, because who signed their checks, who they're connected with, who's in their pocket. Right. And that's what some people care about. They care about that pocket over human life.
That's why I said it doesn't matter to me anymore where you're from or what's your background, because I just named one example that I say in their name that should have been the definition and the face front of this movement right now, right? But he's not. He put out one message that said, oh, I want peace in the world, literally, right? And then you got other people that are self-righteous for real, like Chance the Rapper, and I mention him by name because that's somebody I'm proud of, that flat out says, hey, this is wrong. I don't care what nobody, I don't know what's going on over there, but killing kids, bombing them, that's wrong. Killing people while they're praying, that's wrong. And we should all be able to agree on that basic, like most basic issue here. That's why I started off saying on a human level. I don't even want to connect with you as a Muslim. I don't want to connect with you as an Alpha. I don't want to connect with this audience as an Arab or as a Palestinian. I'm connecting to you as a human. That means every listener is a human. I don't care what you, even if you are you know, geez, I don't know, like a white supremacist, you're still human. To a certain degree, you're gonna have some level like of rules of war of engagement, right?
You want to hear the funny thing though? The pushback on that is, in the mindset of those people, like a white supremacist or a Zionist person, right? They'll say and accept that they are humans, but the problem is they don't see us and other people as humans. So it's like they'll say, "Oh, you talking about this human thing," but the problem is they don't see us as the same human. They see us as a subspecies.
And I agree with you 100,000,000%, and which is why it goes back to my original point. Look, man, I'm not one that's gonna sell you a dream and sit here and tell you kumbaya. We all need to hold hands and whatnot. Listen, everybody that knows me and hears this is gonna know what I'm about to say. Like, Martin Luther King was my frat brother, but he wasn't somebody that I agreed with necessarily on his way of handling things. Now, I understand towards the latter end, he changed his mind, and that's probably why they took him out. Let's just keep it $1.50 here. But I've always been a brother Malik Shabazz type of mindset, a Malcolm X type. So who, shout out, I believe his birthday is today, or
happy birthday, brother Malcolm.
Was it yesterday?
No, it's today, May 19th.
Yeah, I think it's today. Yeah. And you know what? For the average person, we're gonna call him Brother Malcolm X, but for those Muslims, I do want to give him the dignity title of El Hajj Malik Shabazz, because this man performed Hajj, and everybody, it's like to the modern world like a doctor, right? You have these people that are like, oh, I'm a doctor. Make sure you call me Doctor So-and-so. You know what? It's the same thing in Islam, man. If Allah bless you with that pilgrimage and you performed Hajj, you deserve that title. So I do want to reference him as that El Hajj Malik Shabazz, man. May Allah, accept all his deeds and allow us to be in paradise and allow him to be in paradise as well. But his more mindset is more what has to happen. He's one of the people that quoted that Palestinians are oppressed, and it's a matter of time before the people have to get pushback, right? Yep. And it's sad to say, but the people that are leading front, we're not even asking for an independent Palestine or any of that. People are just asking for human basic rights. They're like, hey man, don't bomb our kids. Hey man, like don't bomb our hospitals. Like don't bomb our women. Like, and it's funny when people are always like, well, how do you feel about the conflict? I'm like, it's not a conflict. Yeah. A conflict has two sides. I want somebody to show me what the Palestinian army is dressed in. Show me what they're wearing. Because I haven't seen not a single uniform yet. I see kids throwing rocks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it's some other propaganda that happened a few years ago by a very famous movie star who created a movie that tried to, in a comedic way, highlight the, Israeli forces and what they doing to Palestine. You know what movie I'm talking about?
No, I don't even think you're gonna have to tell me off camera because I really don't know. I try to stay away from anything that would remotely piss me off, so I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Okay, you know this one though. I know you know this one. You don't mess with the, Zohan.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's two parts to it, right? It's not just, was it one or two that they came out with?
It was one he came out with.
Okay.
Yeah. And he tried
where
to make
he was
like
a agent of the Mossad, I think is the reference. I mean, that's their secret service. It's called the Mossad, but I don't know if that's what he was. But believe it or not, I did not see the movie, but I do know the movie you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like I am 1000% committed to not watching certain things, bro, no matter how popular they are.
And I guarantee it's good that you didn't watch it too, because it tried to show the overall theme of that movie. They tried to say that all the outside forces of white supremacy was influencing this idea of a conflict between Palestinians and Israelis, right? And not really highlighting what truthfully is happening. You feel me? And trying to feel, it's like the movie tried to say Palestine had just as much fault as the other side of the coin. You feel me?
Yeah. No, and I always, when I have these discussions with people of intelligence, right? Because sometimes, I think Jay-Z was quoted saying like, what is it? Don't argue with a fool because people from a distance can't tell who is who, right? So it's a waste of time for you to be sitting there arguing with a fool. But people of intelligence, when they do present these ideas, at the end of the day, I always tell them like, men lie, women lie, numbers don't, right? Let's just look at straight numbers, straight facts. We have maps and evidence because a lot of the Christian Zionists tell you Palestine never existed. Show me something that shows Palestine never existed. Okay, that's cool. We go to those 1905 and 1908 Bibles that you as a Christian believe in, where in it tells you Palestine, the Holy Land, and it references it to you. That's one. Two, we got footage of Palestinians, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, all of them under the Palestine flag, living cohesively, right? We got evidence of when the Jews began this settlement. We got evidence, just like we got evidence that the Holocaust happened. Exactly. No one is denying that, right? But you turn around and you say, hey, you're doing the exact same thing. You're doing the same genocide to the Arabs over there. Then it's just like, oh, but you got to see what they did. And you know what I tell people sometimes, like recently I found myself telling people, they're like, oh, like, they'll ask me like, how do you feel about what's going on? And I'll be like, look, man, And if it's a person of color, especially if they're African American, I'll tell them, be like, look, how did you feel when you saw George Floyd? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of you was hurt, but part of you knew this shit was going on. Excuse my language. Right?
Yeah.
Part of you knew, like, this has been going on for years, Ahmed. It just so happened somebody caught it on camera, and now
Uh-huh.
there's an uproar. But he wasn't the first one to get his choked out. He wasn't the first one to get. I mean, we go back to Rodney King, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's been stories among, but back then we had one main source and news outlet, right? To
Yep.
where they can present the story the way they want, they can manipulate the language the way they want, and therefore the people wrote out. Now the people of the community knew,
Yeah.
right? Even growing up, we knew certain things not to do. Not
Yep.
because it was right or wrong, but you just knew that you're not white, so you can't do that.
Yep.
Right? You just couldn't do that. That was just the rules, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's the same thing with Palestine. I tell people, like, look, man, this stuff been going on. They've been killing kids since I was born. This is
Yep.
nothing new. I'm glad that it's getting all this media. I'm glad it's getting all this attention, and I'm praying just like. But I was just about to say, I'm praying that a result happens just like the George Floyd situation. But even that's sad to me.
Yeah.
Right? It took all these protests and rallies and march and all these other people to die before him just to get one cop convicted. And that was the trophy. You see what I'm saying? Like
Uh,
the world is so misconstrued, man. The world is so biased that at this point, the reason I'm doing this podcast with you, the reason I speak to everybody is because the way I look at it is like, hey man, I didn't realize how many of my own close friends didn't understand what was going on.
yeah.
Like when I'm posting everything and I have people that I grew up with, they'd be like, dang, bruh, I didn't know it was that bad. And in my head, I'm like, damn, I failed you as a friend because we've been friends for 10 plus years. And I've never brought up Palestine to you because I've just accepted it for what it is.
Uh,
So now that I'm posting about it, people are like, oh man. So then I took it as like, all right, this is a time to catch this wave, catch this spark, educate people.
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I might not be able to change the politicians. I'm a tribe, but we might not be able to affect the big companies. But guess what? If we can touch the people on the
Yeah.
ground level, we as a people can do something.
Yeah.
We
And
can create enough noise that people will listen.
yep. And I'm glad you mentioned those things too, because one thing I notice in the Black community when it comes to these things on social media, right? It comes in waves. It's a trend. Everybody posting Black lives, everybody into it. But I feel we burn ourselves out. That's why me personally, I talk about these things. It's clear that I'm pro-Black, pro-human, pro-Palestine, all that. But I make sure I pace it out. Because I feel when you burn out,
It's
people
very
look at it
important.
as a trend. So you got to pace it
No,
out. You got to be
that's
balanced.
absolutely correct. I agree with you 1,000,000%, man. There was a sister that I reposted on my page, Sister Intasar out of the UK, where one of her posts I found was so interesting. It said how to deal with the trauma of social media, like basically of making people aware what's going on social media. And then when I had an in-depth conversation with her, she was like, she found herself mentally drained, posting so much about Palestine, that at the end of the day, it was like a full-time job. And that made me sit back and think about the mental effects that this has on us, right?
Yeah.
Because we can fall into the stereotype of like, oh, he's just an angry black man, right? Or he's just
Yeah.
another terrorist, right? He's just an Arab, he's just a terrorist, right? That's all they think about is war, violence, blow up things, and as a black man, they might think, oh, all he thinks about is all white women and the white devil, and like, nah, bro, we don't even think like that, right? But when you're sitting there as a black man, right, and you're sitting there and you're watching all these bodies, right, getting put up in front of you that look like you, right, and you're watching it, human nature in you, part of you gotta get upset.
Yep.
right? You got to get angry at some point. Now, you might not be angry at anybody specifically. You might be angry at an idea, at an institution,
Yeah.
but you're human,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And it's the same thing with Arabs or Palestinians. When you're watching there now videos of bombs getting dropped, and me as a father, I'm watching little girls crying for their daddy, and that touches, that
Yeah.
hits different.
And
You know
parents
what I mean?
holding their kids for the last time in their hands.
Right. And then like man, I saw this one um subhanallah, bro. They have such strong iman, bro, and such strong bravery that I can't even fathom, right? I saw this mother tweet out that I made sure all of the kids and myself slept in the same bed,
Mm.
so if the bomb drops, we can die together.
Yeah.
Like, what parent goes to bed thinking this? Right? That made me think twice about when I was telling my daughter good night that night, right?
Yeah.
Because we take a lot of things for granted, man. But at the same time, right, as Muslims, we got to be thankful, right? We
Yeah.
truly believe Allah's the best of planners. And as a Muslim first, I truly believe um everything happens for a reason. Obviously, nothing is by chance, and a lot of this was prescribed to us in the Quran, right? How things are going to happen. Um,
And Allah
but when you
said,
take
you know, he put people before us through worse.
way worse,
Yeah.
and you know what's sad is man, if we look at the stories of what happened to the people of Israel, right, the Jews themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
what they were put through, it makes you almost think like, damn, y'all can't get this shit right.
Yeah.
Like, y'all just can't learn. Just learn, bruh. Like, look at what happened to your forefathers. But
Yeah.
again, not to get into the religious aspect, because I know not every listener of yours is Christian, not every listener of yours is Arab. So that's why I want to keep it on a very high level human
Yeah.
aspect, right? From a high level human aspect, man, without getting into right and wrong. And we can definitely get into that and justify it one way or the other. All I'm saying is just like, hey, man, let's just not kill kids. That's just let's not kill kids. Like, is that
Yeah.
just a bad state? Can we get everybody to agree? Let's just not kill kids.
Well,
Like,
here's one
how
thing.
bad is that?
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Here's one thing I will always say, and whatever is always said on this platform is safe. We're 100% against any form of white supremacy, any form against oppression, whether even if it's from people of my own culture, own group. I'm against all forms of oppression, and I will allow for my guests, myself, to unapologetically condemn it and call it out as wrong. I don't play no both sides
Hey
and no.
man, I appreciate that, and again, I try to keep always my conversation geared to the audience, right, to a certain
Mm,
aspect. And you know, if we want to go, I know we're on the record, but if we want to go off the record, and again, what I'm about to say only reflects Ahmad Qasim's opinion. It has nothing to do with your platform. It has nothing to do with your podcast. If you care to agree, you can. Or disagree, it's up to you. It matters not. And again, this is not a reflection of all Palestinians. I want to be clear. This is not definitely not a reflection of all Muslims, to
mm,
be clear. But to me, as Ahmad Qasim, man, like, let me just go on the record and excuse my languages. I'm tired of this shit, man. I'm just plain and sick and tired of it. I'm tired of seeing the bodies. I'm tired of talking about it, but I have to, right?
mm,
At this point, talking about it is the best thing I can do outside of going to enlist in the next army that's about to go over there. And on my mother, I've even talked about this openly. There was everybody's always like, well, why don't you go over there and fight? I was like, listen, man, I don't have the heart that these cats got. I'm a logical person. Show me an army that got guns and tanks and tell me that they're gonna go fight those guns and tanks. I'll sign up because I know my heart is bigger than theirs all day, every day. I just don't have the heart to go with a rock versus an AR or an
oh
AK.
yeah.
I'm not that brave yet.
Well,
Now,
hey,
those
look.
brothers and sisters, I get
I,
it. They have
I t-
no other option.
hey, look. I tell my people here in America because myself, I didn't say it. We gotta, raise up arms against these police and all the different groups. But I'm like, I will never send my people into a suicide mission, knowing the outcome.
Nah, that doesn't
It
even make
sounds
sense.
glorious. It sounds good. It sounds like, oh yeah, fight
Listen,
on
man.
and die. But no, I care about my people. Let's
No.
prepare.
And I've said this to people, and I've had some people even like think I'm joking, but I'm dead serious. Listen, man, there was rumor that the Pakistani army was suiting up to go fight. And on my mother, I said, man, if they would accept my old ass to go over there and suit up with them on everything, I can do. I could be willingly volunteer to sign up for that army and suit up. And that has, and let me be clear, that is not an anti-Semitic statement. That is not an anti-American statement. And allow me to elaborate, because they're like, well, you're American, why don't you join the American army? Because that's the same army that's killing my people.
Yeah.
Let America take a stand where they're going to defend Arabs and Muslims or defend Palestine. And again, on my mother, I'll be the first one to sign up for the U.S. Army. Let's be clear. It's not about a specific country. It's about who's going to stand up for what's right. And let it be as I personally have been, part of, and I wouldn't say as a member, but as more as an aspirant or whatever you want to look at it, of the Black Panther Party, right? Is because I believe, and I'm just being honest with you, I almost started the chapter down in Gainesville, Florida, where I went to school at, but it was because I truly believed it was for the people. It was something that was righteous. It didn't matter to me what backing it had per se, right? And I think that's the defining. I think at every person's life, we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna have to see the purpose of our existence, right? And I've always said, man, as long as I can look at my daughter in the face and be proud of what I've done and the life that I stood up for, and then to me, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. I mean, first and foremost, I want to be able to stand in front of God. But as far as on this dunya, the people that matters to me the most is my daughter. That's about it, just to be honest with you. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's. I just tell the people, man, like keep tweeting about it, keep reposting, keep talking about it. If you have questions, ask about it. For those that don't follow me or know who I am, again, my name is Ahmad Kasem. You can find me, I think, what's my screen name on IG? Palestinian_lefty?
Yeah,
Or is it all one word?
Lefty.
Right.
I'll tag it in the video regardless.
Yeah, Crystal tag it, man. Y'all make sure. Again, I'm look, if you're gonna act dumb, I'm gonna be dumb right back. So please don't reach out to me on some dumb ish, because I don't have the time, but I can make time. I
Make
swear to
time
y'all.
today.
Yeah. But all I'm saying is, if you have real questions, if you have real knowledge, if you want to have a real conversation, just like anybody, we're humans at the end of the day. We can sit across from each other and talk about it, and we can all agree to disagree, and I'm fine with that. As long as we're being respectful and we're talking about what's important at the end of the day, and nothing personal at that point.
And I really appreciate you, brother, for real. And
I just want to take a moment, man, to thank you again for giving me this opportunity, because you didn't have to address it, man. You could have played the safe line, and you could have left it alone. But I do appreciate, because you reached out to me. You demanded the topic, you demanded the time, and I appreciate you for that, man. Again, if one person's just hears this and based off of this, they have a different outcome. I don't even want to change their mind, but if they have a different viewpoint of what's going on, then I did my part. That's all I can ask for.
And definitely, y'all. So y'all heard this best from New Men Same Block and our brother Ahmad. Follow him. Definitely tune in, engage. Free Palestine. That's the message all day, every day, until Palestine is free, until it's said the opposite way. This has been episode 60 of New Men Same Block, where we reinvent your mind to reinvent your grind. Brother Ahmed, you want to say something?
Absolutely, man. Before I leave, I want to just say first and foremost, all praises to Allah, man. If it wasn't for this deen, me and Chris wouldn't have been sitting across from each other. So alhamdulillah, which for those that don't know, alhamdulillah just means all thanks to Allah or God, the most gracious. Because this deen is what brought people like myself and Chris together. And then secondly, we can't overlook that shield behind them, right? The frat. At the end of the day, shout out to all the brothers, Theta Sigma chapter and Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated all together and across the whole country, man, for allowing brothers such as myself and Chris to be of different backgrounds, different religions, different environment, and still find us under a common brotherhood bond. And that I never took for granted, and I always appreciate it. And I just want to shout out everybody, Muslim, not Muslim, Arab, not Arab, that's making the world aware of what's going on, man. We appreciate y'all. Gaza appreciates you. Palestine appreciates you. The Arab community appreciates you, and Muslims all around are appreciating. Humans all around the world are appreciating you. So thank y'all so much. Love, peace, in Palestine. And again, shout out to you, Chris, for giving me the opportunity, man. I really appreciate it, brother.
Hey, no problem. All love, bruh. And like I said, everybody, this is New Men, Same Block. Peace.